Hi everybody, I'm Mike Garska with Success Tool Chest and FindAMentor.com. Welcome to this week's edition of Help Me Communicate, where I help you become a better communicator. It's a frisky, cold morning here in Edmonton this morning. I hope your 2018 is off to a great start. This week in Help Me Communicate, I'm going to share how to fire someone with integrity and with compassion, and how to build, because it's an important part of building a strong work mastermind team. I see every team in a business as a mastermind team. A sales team is a mastermind team, a accounting team is a mastermind team, and so on and so forth. And have you been in a situation where there's kind of a virus going on in the company in the form of bad behavior or constant mistakes? Well, just like people, business teams get viruses, and they show up in the form of bad behavior and constant mistakes. And it's important either to heal that virus or to remove that virus from the team, because the energies of our mastermind teams determine the success of the team's objectives, and it also determines the success of each individual within the team. People that are members of strong teams become stronger. People that are members of dysfunctional and viral teams become weaker, and that energy is contagious, just like a virus. And so it's important to remove those viruses. So do you have a situation where you need you've got to clean house a little bit or fix a virus within an organization? Many people run into that situation at different times of their leadership, in their leadership careers. And so I'm here to give you a 9-step process today for how to fire somebody with compassion and with integrity. I think back to firing people, and I know the first time that I had to fire somebody, it was very difficult, and I waited way too long. I waited 3 or 4 months when I first owned my cellular phone stores, and the guy I had to fire, I didn't want to let him go. I didn't want to have that difficult conversation. It's very tough. But eventually I got the courage up and I did it, and I realized as soon as I did it that I should have done it way sooner, because the person we brought in lifted the energy of the group, and the group did better as a whole. One other time, I had to fire the top salesperson on a team. It was really unfortunate. This guy got hired on, and within a couple of months he was actually the top salesperson in the industry in the province. And but he created headaches for the entire work team. Every time he made a sale, it created extra customer service. It created extra work for the other salespeople. It created extra work for the service team, the equipment service team, and it was actually it was dysfunctional. And even though he was selling more than other people, we ended up canceling some of his sales because he didn't say the right thing to the people or qualify properly, and we ended up losing sales in the end run. And then other salespeople had, instead of spending time on their own deals, they were spending time fixing his deals, and it just made negative energy bad. And so we actually fired our top salesperson in that situation. And sometimes we have to do that. It's important that the energy of the entire team is at a high level. And that, like I say, that helps determine the success of the team's objectives, and it helps each individual within the team become much more successful. So sometimes you got to clean house. Do you have that situation? Here's how you do that. If you struggled with what to say or what the process is to do it legally, I'm going to give you this 9-step process today. And this process follows Alberta labor law. So one of the things that we have to be careful when we're firing people is that we do it with just cause. I mean, if we don't do that, it ends up costing the company money and severance and all kinds of things if the Labor Relations Board comes in. The first note I want to make about firing somebody is new people. In our province, we have within our laws the ability to fire any new person within a 90-day probation period without cause. So take advantage of that. Sometimes if you're not sure if this person isn't gelling right on a new hire, and within 90 days it's not working out, don't hesitate to let them go and bring in the right person. Now, there have been times where I've extended a probation period, so I'll bring the person in and say, Charlie, you're doing a great job, but you know, you're not 100% great fit here, so my option is to either extend your probation period or to let you go right now. What would you prefer? If we're going to extend your probation period, I get him to sign that he's on a 90, his probation period's been extended 90 days, and that if he doesn't improve these areas, then we're going to let him go. So that's the 90-day probation period. But now I'm going to talk about how to deal with a long-term employee that's become a virus within the organization. He's bringing the energy of the team down and all of that kind of stuff. The 9 steps, I'm going to list them off quickly here, and then I'm going to go into some details about what they are. Step 1 is to acknowledge the problem, detail it, identify it specifically. Step 2 is decide what needs to happen for this person to fix that problem. So that's define that clearly so that when we go to step 3, which is to have that difficult conversation, we can give the person a plan and offer some training to fix the problem. If that's all agreed to in that step 3, the conversation, then we provide the training as step 4. Step 5 is to give the person some positive affirmation to keep them positive and keep them encouraged to fix the mistakes or to fix the bad behavior. Step 6 is, assuming the bad behavior continues, is to have a second conversation. And in that conversation, we give the person the ultimatum that if it's not fixed, they're going to be fired. And we put that in writing. And we have a witness in the room. Step 7, after that, is to provide more positive affirmation. Encourage the person to improve the behavior or fix the mistakes that he or she is making. And provide more positive affirmation. Step 8 now is assuming that this hasn't worked, these first 7 steps haven't worked, then we need to prepare for that. Step 8 is to prepare for that termination conversation. And one of the things I do is I actually prepare a recommendation letter. I'll talk about that a little bit further. And then step 9 is to have that termination conversation and to make sure there's a witness in the room when you're doing that. So now let's go into the details of step 1. Clearly define specific situations and circumstances where the bad behavior or their mistakes occurred, so that it's very clear that when and this is step 1, is to prepare for that difficult conversation, step 1 and 2. So we wanted to have specific instances and situations, and even if there's somebody else that notices, have their name written down. Make sure you have permission to use their name if you need to, but write down exactly what the issues are. Prepare yourself. Step 2 is to decide what needs to happen to correct the bad behavior or to correct the mistake habits. So have a plan of action or a solution prepared. And then step 3 is to have that difficult conversation. Bring the person in. Now, how do you do those difficult conversations? Well, I'm going to give you a couple of tips here. First of all, you acknowledge plan your conversation, acknowledge the human interaction process. So we have a free video at successtoolchest.com that tells you what the human interaction process is. It's how people communicate, and understanding that process makes it easier to have those difficult conversations. Basically, when people communicate, we sense, we think, we feel, we get an intention, and then we choose action. And so in preparing that conversation, we start with saying, here's what I witnessed. I witnessed these behaviors, or these behaviors were brought to my attention. I heard about them, or I saw them, and be specific about what those are. When I saw those, I felt concerned, and I got worried about the success of my team and my department. And I thought about all the different options that we could provide. And my intention is to fix this problem and move forward and get you prepared. And so the second part of having this difficult termination conversation, when I owned cellular phone stores, we brought in a team from Toronto once to coach us on coaching people. And what they told us is when somebody makes a mistake and you have to give them constructive criticism or correct their mistakes, to do it in what's called a shit sandwich formula. Have you ever heard of the shit sandwich? It's quite interesting, actually. Basically, you give the person some positive affirmation, some good stuff about what they're doing. Then you give them the corrective, constructive feedback, and then more positive affirmation. So, and for example, here's how a conversation might go. Charlie, you're a great employee. You're here on time every day. Your punctuality and attendance is perfect. So great job. We really appreciate that. But when you come to work every day, you're here at 8 o'clock. But from 8 to 8:30, you're socializing. And that disrupts your productivity, and it disrupts the productivity of the people that you're socializing with. And that affects the team in a negative way because we're not getting as much done in a day as we could. So what I would like you to do is either come in early and get your socializing done before 8 o'clock, or keep your socializing to 5 minutes max, and so that by 5 after 8, you're setting an example and you're getting down to work and hunkering down and working hard, and that's what, and everybody else will do that. So what I've done is I give them, and then I'll say, but Charlie, you know, your work is meticulous. Your attention to detail is fabulous. The quality of your work is great. So punctuality is good. Quality of work's great. Just got to fix that little thing. So that's the shit sandwich method. Now, we found since the turn of the century, the psychologists have just, have studied what motivates and inspires people to work. And what we found is that, in fact, the proper formula for corrective measures is when you've corrected somebody, the shit sandwich provides a 2-to-1 positive affirmation to negative feedback. But in fact, the proper formula is actually 7-to-1. So when somebody's been corrected, you've got to look for 7 opportunities to give them positive affirmation about things that they're doing really well. And that inspires them to correct the misbehavior or the mistakes. Now, that's very difficult to do for a leader by themselves. So with one construction company, what I've recommended is that the superintendent have the constructive criticism conversation. So the superintendent brings the worker in and does the sit sandwich. So we're at a 2-to-1 positive affirmation. And he's giving him his constructive feedback. And he sends the guy out on the site to do his work and to correct his mistakes. And then he brings his leadership team in, the foreman and lead hands. And he says to the foreman and lead hands, okay, I've corrected Charlie. He's made these mistakes. What I want you guys to do this week is watch him closely. Because you're my eyes and ears out there. I'm not out on the site all day. And I want you to watch. If he makes mistakes, correct him again. But look for 5 or 6 opportunities to give him a pat on the back. So that will encourage him to work harder and to work with more attention to detail and to correct his mistakes and to make sure he doesn't do that same either bad behavior or mistake a second time. So give him that positive affirmation. So the person uses the leadership team to give the 7 to get to that 7-to-1 formula. Now we strongly encourage a minimum 4-to-1 formula, but 7-to-1 is better. So that brings me to that clarification of step 3. You have that verbal conversation, you share your human interaction process, you give them their feedback in a shit sandwich method, and then the second part of a difficult conversation is to ask them about their human interaction process. Now that I've shared this information, what are your thoughts? How do you feel about that? What's your intention? And we would offer a solution in that difficult conversation. We'll say, now here's the training that we can give you to get you through this. Are you interested in doing that training? And if they're not interested in doing the training, then say, why are you here? But typically they're interested in getting the training or going forward and to correct, or they might say, no, I don't need the training. I'm going to correct this on my own, or I know what to do. So then you go to the next step. Step 4 is to provide the training if it's required. If this employee, he or she is requesting, you give them the training. Step 5 is to look for that opportunity to give those other, 2 to 5 positive affirmation opportunities, affirmation to the employee. So you use your team to do that. That's step 5. So far we've identified the problem specifically. Step 2 was deciding what needs to happen, have a solution. Step 3 is to have the difficult conversation, provide the solution, and to offer some training. Step 4 is to provide that training. Step 5 is to give more positive affirmation. So step 6 happens when that didn't work. The first 4 steps didn't work. 5 steps didn't work. So we have the second conversation, and this is a key conversation. Again, we plan it out. But what we do in this second conversation is a really good idea to have a witness in this one, because we're going to give the employee an ultimatum in this, and we're going to say, if this, now we've talked to you about this problem in the past, and when I'm working with employees, I strongly suggest having a coaching file for every employee that I'm responsible for leading. And so I pull out that coaching file in the first conversation and make notes that we've had the verbal conversation. In the second conversation, I not only make notes about it, but I say to the person, look, if this doesn't get remedied, you're going to be fired. So I get the person, I make a note of that in the person's file, I get them to sign it, I give them a copy of what they've signed, I sign it and give them a copy, and they now have their warning that if this problem doesn't remedy, then they're going to be fired if I got to bring them in the third time. And again, it's a good idea to have that witness in there. So step 7 is they've got the training, they've had 2 conversations, give them more positive affirmation, encourage them to do better. That's step 7. Now, let's say that it hasn't improved. Well, then we've got to have that termination conversation. So we want to prepare for that conversation. And what I decided to do in my career as a leader was when I have to fire somebody, there's always positive attributes that every individual has. And so I acknowledge those positive attributes. And I actually, before I have the termination conversation, step 8 is I prepare a letter of recommendation. And I write out all the positive attributes and I give that to the person in the termination conversation. But I have the termination conversation and I say, hey, Charlie, I've talked to you about this twice. Last time we talked about it, I said I was going to fire you. I am going to fire you. Here's a letter of recommendation. I don't recommend that you apply for this same type of job because you can't do it. Here's the type of jobs that I would recommend that you apply for, and here's a letter of recommendation for that. But if you use me as a referral, I'm going to be very honest with the person. I'm going to tell them what I recommend for you, and tell them what I found. And so that's the true story, but here you go. And, this is best for you and best for the company here, because my job is to keep my team hitting on all cylinders, and you've become a virus within that and disruptive to that energy. So I've got to let you go. So that's the process. I'll give you a quick review of it. Step 1, acknowledge it. Identify the problem, specifically write down the specific instances. Come up with some solutions is step 2. Step 3 is to have that first verbal conversation with the person. Use your sit sandwich. Share your hip. Ask about their hip. Offer training. And then step 4 is to provide the training to correct the person. Step 5 then is to look for opportunities to give more positive affirmation to encourage the person to improve. Step 6 is assuming the behavior is continued. You have the second conversation and you give a warning that the person's going to be fired. You put that in writing. You have the person sign it. You sign it. Have a witness. Give them a copy of the written warning, and send them out to correct the problems. Step 7 is to provide more positive affirmation. Now, step 8 is assuming that both those conversations didn't work and everything's continuing on, the bad behavior is continuing or the mistakes are continuing, then you prepare. Step 8 is to prepare for that termination conversation. Identify the person's positive attributes, give them a letter of recommendation, and this is showing a lot of compassion. And one thing that we're trying to do as a leader is gain and earn the respect of our work team. And when we fire people with integrity and with compassion, we gain the respect of our work team and they work harder for us. So then you have that termination conversation in step 9, and you have a witness in the room and you terminate the employee. And again, it sets the example. It shows to your work team that you're stern, that you have a backbone, that you're concerned about the energy of the team. And when you bring in that new person, it lifts the energy of the team up. The whole team has more respect for the leader and they work harder for that leader. So if a leader doesn't address the issues of a virus within the work team, the entire work team's energy drops. They lose respect for the leader and they work not as hard. And the team doesn't achieve the objectives that they could. So don't hesitate to clean house when you need to. Follow this 9-step process. It shows that you're leading with integrity and with compassion. And so that's today's tip. I hope you got something out of that. When you got to clean house, don't hesitate to do it. I talked about the human interaction process. You can go to successtoolchest.com and download the free little short video or the PDF and learn how people communicate. It's a free service. Or you can take the contact communications and masterminding program, because one of the most important tools that any of us can develop to become more successful is our ability to communicate, and that never stops growing. We can always be a better communicator. We've got a great 3 hours of online video training to walk you right through the entire process of having difficult conversations. We share with you what questions to ask, how to use I statements, how to use you statements. We share with you what active listening is, what reflective listening is. We give you a bunch of don'ts on what words not to use and that kind of thing. We show you how to find common ground and take a conversation to the next level and find common resolution. So don't hesitate to sign up for that program. It's only $189. And like us on our Facebook page here, like our websites, and please share our live feeds and our Help Me Communicate series. Like I say, they're all posted in the blog at successtoolchest.com. Go out and make it an awesome day. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next week in Help Me Communicate. Bye for now.